We tend to think of words as just labels, right? Things we use to describe the world around us. But what if I told you it's actually the other way around? What if the words you use aren't just describing your reality, they are actively building it, brick by brick? The philosopher Martin Heidegger put it perfectly with this amazing metaphor. He said, language is the house of being. I mean, just think about that for a second. The words we use are literally the house we live in. So, is the house you've built for yourself spacious and comfortable? Or does it feel more kind of like a prison? Okay, let's feel the difference right here. On the left, I am a failure. That's not just a description, is it? It's an identity. It feels permanent, heavy. Now, try the one on the right. I am a person who has experienced failure. Totally different, right? One is who you are. The other is just something that happened. That one little shift in language creates a massive shift in power. So this is what we mean by the prison of our words. How do we get trapped? Well, every time we define ourselves by our problems, we're laying another brick in the wall. We do it over and over until we've built this structure around us. And eventually, we can actually forget that we're the person inside the prison, not the prison itself. But here's the brilliant part, and this is really the whole point. If language is powerful enough to build a prison, it's also the key that can unlock the door. This is the core idea behind a whole field called narrative therapy. The thinking is simple. Since we built our reality with words, we can use new words to build a new and better one. Now, there's a fancy term for this, constitutive force. It sounds a little academic, I know, but the idea is actually pretty straightforward. It just means that language doesn't simply reflect reality, it creates it. Every time you say, I am an anxious person, you're not just reporting a feeling, you're actually strengthening that identity. Your words are constantly, actively shaping who you become. Okay, so if we want to change our story, how do we actually do it? We need some tools, right? So let's get practical. We're going to dive into 3 specific linguistic techniques you can use to start reauthoring your own personal narrative. First up, and this one is a real game changer, is what's called externalizing language. The big idea here is to talk about a problem like it's a separate thing, not a part of you. You aren't your anxiety. You are you. Anxiety is, well, it's like an annoying acquaintance who just shows up uninvited. Creating that little bit of distance is everything. This example just makes it crystal clear. I am depressed. Wow, that feels like a total state of being, doesn't it? But look at the alternative. The depression has been following me. See what happens? Suddenly it's not you. It's this shadow hanging around. And if it's external, you can have a relationship with it. You can argue with it. You can push back. You can notice when it's weaker. You get your agency back. Now, the next tool zooms out a little. It's called structural deconstruction. And this is all about looking at the limiting stories that our culture hands to us. Think about a term like failed mother. I mean, who wrote that script? Where did that idea even come from? When we start taking apart these dominant discourses, we realize they aren't facts. They're just social constructs, and we absolutely don't have to accept them. Okay, so all of these tools lead up to the main event, reauthoring. This is the act of consciously sitting down and rewriting your life story. It's about moving away from what therapists call thin descriptions and moving toward thick descriptions, stories that are way richer, much more complex, and a whole lot more empowering. So what does a thin story look like? It's pretty much a negative headline. It takes 1 or 2 bad events and draws this huge, sweeping conclusion, like, I always mess everything up, or I'm just not good enough. It's totally one-dimensional and leaves zero room for any of your strengths, your resilience, or anything that contradicts the negative plot. A thick story, on the other hand, is the full novel. It doesn't ignore the tough stuff, not at all. It just adds context. It weaves in your values, your intentions, all the times you showed up and tried. It creates a story that's more complex, more nuanced, and honestly, a lot more true to who you really are. Now look, this whole approach is incredibly powerful, for real. But to really get it, we've got to look at it with clear eyes. We have to acknowledge both its massive strengths and, some of its potential pitfalls. So, on the plus side, it's amazing for reducing that feeling of shame and giving you back a sense of agency. It can even challenge some really unfair cultural ideas. But, and this is a big but, critics rightly point out that there's a risk of trivializing very real, very serious biological conditions. It also helps if you're comfortable with language, and you have to be careful that nobody's just imposing their story onto you. So at the end of the day, the power of language is a classic double-edged sword. It can be one of the most liberating tools we have, able to dismantle years of shame and self-doubt. But it has to be used with skill, with awareness, and with a deep respect for how complex we all are. But if there is one single thing to take away from all this, it's this. Changing the way you speak can fundamentally change the way you live. The words you use day in and day out about your life, your problems, yourself, they have the profound power to reshape your entire reality. Which leaves us with one last personal question. As you go about your day today, just listen. Pay attention to the words you're using to build that house you live in, because every sentence you say is a choice. So, what story are you authoring today?